What do a $1.8 million supercar, a Group B rally monster, and this tiny 100 horsepower hatchback have in common? They're all twin charged, baby. They have both a supercharger and a turbocharger, a true KFC Double Down sandwich of power. This decades-old design could be making a comeback. So today, we're gonna figure out why you would want to double down on forced induction and why so few cars have ever been twin charged in the first place. Turns out, mo charging might just mean mo problems. Biggie Smalls, 2021, he's still alive. I don't know what they want from me. It's like the more charging we come apart and the more problems we see. Thanks to K&N for sponsoring today's video. It's officially garage season, which means it's time to start spending countless hours working on your cars and spending a ton of money constructing your own upgrades. Like this custom air filter. I call it the fast air recirculation transmitter. Smoke means it's working.
Why not just use a K&N filter? It's way easier than that.
I'm sorry, but it can't be easier than this. Air gets sucked in through these dual unnecessary ducts, gets passed through this nice multiple precise oxygen sensor, down into the elastic waste washer and back into the box full of variable integrated injectors.
Yeah, or you can just go to a K&N filter. They are easier than that, and honestly, they work way better. And K&N was started in a garage with two dudes in Riverside, California, 50 years ago. So you know their products are engineered for people who love garage season. They offer air filters, cabin air filters, oil filters, air intakes, electronics, and much more.
Sure, but do they make custom ones for your vehicle? You know, mine's custom because I used plywood. And I used my grandma's fan for it.
Yeah, K&N actually designs these to custom fit specific makes and models. And their upgrades are designed to be easy to install to make your car run faster, run further, and run cleaner. And we use K&N filters on a bunch of our donut cars and even on our personal cars. It's what I was running on my S14 back when it ran. So head over to knfilters.com/donut for some special discounts today.
All right, I'll admit, I'm impressed. But does K&N have an oil hub filter utilization contraption?
Yeah, as I said just seconds ago, they make oil filters. Here, this one's for you.
Oh, you really have thought of everything. 1985 saw the NBA debut of Michael Jordan. The original Nintendo hit US shores and the first production engine to use both a turbocharger and supercharger was put in a car. With just 1.8 liters of displacement, that engine made 500 horsepower and was in the Lancia Delta S4. It won 5 out of the 12 WRC rallies it entered in that year. In the 35 years since then, there have been just 8 twin-charged production engines, but 3 of those have debuted since 2018. But why would you need both a turbo and a supercharger? Why not just have a twin turbo or a twin supercharger? Does that even exist? Well, to understand why there are so few twin-charged engines and why we may be seeing more on the horizon, we first need to understand what forced induction does and why you would use it in the first place. Every internal engine needs a healthy diet of air, and there are 2 ways to get it. Some engines are naturally aspirated. These are the almighty but gentle whale sharks, drifting along, lazily scooping up air. But others, they use forced induction. These are like great whites charging around the seas, gobbling up as much air as they can to feed their ceaseless hunger. That extra air is forced, like this shark analogy. We could have chose anything else, but we chose the animals in the water. Doesn't matter. Okay, now it's forced into the engine by an external compressor, which raises the density of the intake charge. Intake charge is the mixture of air and fuel entering the cylinders. The amount of oxygen in the charge determines how much fuel an engine can combust. The air entering a naturally aspirated engine has the same density as the atmosphere around it. With natural aspiration, the only way to get more air in the cylinders is to increase their volume, known as displacement. But with forced induction, a compressor raises the intake air density, creating supercharged air with more oxygen by volume. The amount the air density increases is the boost pressure. Combine boost with more fuel, and that means bam, embryo glacis, more power. In other words, by increasing the density of the air, you can burn more fuel without needing a larger engine. Exactly what you'd want if you're designing a car with a limit on engine displacement, like they have in the WRC. Or if you want the fuel economy and emissions of a small engine, but with more power. Now, the two most common compressors are turbochargers and superchargers. Each have benefits and drawbacks, and twin charging uses the advantages of one of those to make up for the drawbacks of the other. So to understand how they can work together, we need to look at the biggest difference between them: how they're powered. A turbocharger uses the engine's exhaust as a power source. Exhaust gas spins a turbine which is attached to an impeller. The impeller draws more air into the engine's intake to create boost. And the bigger the turbo is, the more boost it can make. But turbos, especially big turbos, have a couple of drawbacks. One of them is heat, like me when I'm on the dance floor. Cue me dancing on the dance floor. See how hot I get? Increasing intake pressure also increases temperature, and hot air has less oxygen by volume than cold air. Since the whole point of a turbo is to increase the amount of oxygen in the intake charge, many turbo systems will include an intercooler which works like a radiator. The charge air is routed through a metal panel with lots of fins. All that surface area transfers heat from the pressurized air to the atmosphere. That's great for lowering intake temperature, but it increases the complexity and weight of the turbo system. It also adds internal volume to the intake. Filling that extra space with pressurized air takes time. That creates a power delay from when you mash the accelerator as boost pressure builds into the system, something referred to as turbo lag. Oh, you got turbo lag, dude. Oh, dude, you never had turbo lag. I don't know what you're talking about. Now, lots of times, turbo lag is confused with something called boost threshold. That's the minimum speed at which there's sufficient exhaust pressure to spin the turbo fast enough to create boost. With a small turbo, the boost threshold can be as low as 1500 RPM, but bigger turbos might require engine speeds of 4000 RPM or more. The turbine itself will be spinning 10 to 30 times faster than the engine, and some turbos can reach speeds over 280,000 RPM. That's like this fast. Generally, bigger turbos make more boost, but with a higher boost threshold. It takes power to push exhaust past the turbine, and below the boost threshold, the turbo actually reduces the amount of power being sent to the wheels. So how do you deal with something like that? What do you do? Well, one way is to add another forced induction device that isn't powered by exhaust pressure, and in that case, that's a supercharger. You can power a supercharger with electricity, but that's pretty uncommon because it comes with its own set of problems. We made an entire episode about it, so check it out here if you want to know more. Instead of electricity or exhaust gases, a typical supercharger gets power from the rotation of the crank. And there are three common types. You got a centrifugal, you got a roots, you got a twin screw. Centrifugal superchargers operate a bit like a turbo, but replace a turbine with a pulley driven by the crank. Like a turbo, these have a boost threshold, typically needing an impeller speed of 30,000 to 60,000 RPM. To achieve that, centrifugal superchargers use a set of gears to multiply the crank's rotation. That means as crank speed increases, there's an exponential increase in impeller speed. But below the boost threshold, they simply aren't spinning fast enough to do anything, and that means a centrifugal supercharger won't make up for a turbo's lack of low RPM punch. Pop, pop, pop. So for twin charging, you need a roots or twin screw supercharger because both are positive displacement superchargers. That means they flow the same amount of air for every rotation of the crank, from idle all the way to redline. And that means no boost threshold. Because these superchargers are pumping the same amount of air regardless of engine speed, they can be measured by their displacement, just like an engine. So a 2-liter roots or twin screw supercharger moves 2 liters of air for every rotation of the crank. A roots supercharger uses 2 rotors with 3 or more lobes that mesh together as they rotate in opposite directions. The space between the lobes is filled with air on the inlet side of the supercharger, and that air gets forced out on the discharge side into the intake manifold. The air isn't compressed inside the supercharger itself, it's simply blown by the compressor into the intake. So these are sometimes called blowers. Roots blowers are simple and reliable, but they have some drawbacks as well. They tend to be heavy, produce a lot of heat, and take up a lot of space. Because they're driven by the crank, they're also parasitic, like that worm in my belly, drawing power from the engine to spin the rotors. Those rotors also don't seal perfectly, so air leaks between them, and that inefficiency reduces boost pressure. Twin screw superchargers use 2 screw-shaped rotors with a male and female side that mesh more completely than the rotors in a roots blower, meaning fewer air leaks. Those screw rotors also compress the air inside the supercharger itself, meaning they're more efficient than a roots. They're also smaller and lighter, but because of their tighter tolerances, they require more precision to manufacture and are usually more expensive. Since they always provide the same volume of extra air with every rotation of the crank, the extra power from a positive displacement supercharger is available at idle. But the big problem is they can never make any more boost than that, and they can't reach the same peak output that a turbo can. A turbo will be more capable at high revs, but at the cost of low end power below the boost threshold. So at this point, you guys figured out why you might want to use both of these. You get the best of both worlds. A supercharger can add boost from idle up to the turbo's boost threshold, and then the turbo can take over to make even more power all the way up until redline. The supercharger can also fill in for the turbo while it's spooling up to reduce turbo lag. So twin charging is the best of both worlds. But like everything that seems to be great, as you're approaching it with an analytical mind, there are some problems. First problem is I need to go real quick to change my underpants because I let something out and I let a fart out and something came out. But what are some of the actual problems? Well, you've probably already guessed what some of those might be because we talk about them in nearly every episode of B2B when we're discussing some new piece of technology. Mass, complexity, and the cost. A turbo requires a bunch of extra stuff under the hood. You need a complicated exhaust manifold. You need extra intake plumbing for the intercooler, which needs to be placed somewhere that isn't getting cooked by the engine. And the turbo itself. That all takes up space and it adds weight. Adding a supercharger does the same thing. You need an extra pulley and a belt coming off the crank. The supercharger is usually mounted right on top of the engine, increasing its height, and if you want to cool that air, you're probably going to have to mount the intercooler in the worst place possible, directly between the motor and the supercharger. That means running lines for liquid cooling. So using both types of forced induction means those systems have to work together. Twin charge engines have two partially overlapping intake paths, complete with sensors to detect airflow in both, and an ECU program to switch between the systems. That requires a clutch to disengage the supercharger pulley at high revs, and solenoids and valves to seal the part of the intake where the turbo takes over. That's one reason why so few D-holes twin charge their engine. Well, if you're a D-hole, you're part of the Donut Underground. It's our members only subscription-based service. You get a bunch of extra content. You get shirts, you get stickers. Click that join button right below. You can even get in the Discord chat with me. I'm a fellow D-hole. What's up, my D-holes? D-hole, D-hole, D-hole. Now the other big reason is the cost. Volkswagen made one of the few mass-produced twin-charge engines with their 1.4-liter TSI. They put it in the Golf, the Jetta, and many other small cars as a replacement for a 2-liter naturally aspirated engine. The result was more power, more torque, less weight, better acceleration, better fuel economy, and reduced emissions, earning Volkswagen numerous engine design awards between 2006 and 2011. But then the accountants figured out that getting rid of the supercharger would save them over 10 million bones. Replacing it with an engine that was turbo-only wasn't that much worse, so you got the axe. There have been just 8 production engines that have been twin charged in the history of engines. It's not very many because there's a lot of engines out there. I guess if it was a good idea, everyone would be doing it. But 3 of those 8 have appeared in the last 3 years. Audi, Land Rover, and Mercedes have all recently jumped on the twin charging bandwagon. What makes this new generation of twin chargers interesting is that the supercharger is electric. Dun, 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 dun. This is a musical episode. The problem with electric superchargers has always been providing enough electricity to make them spin fast. The Audi, which is a twin-charged diesel, needs a special electrical system just for the supercharger. But the Land Rover and the Mercedes have an internal combustion engine in a hybrid system with big batteries to power electric motors and more than enough for electric supercharging too. Combined, those systems are good for around 400 horsepower. So I guess twin charging ain't dead just yet until electric completely kills the engine part of that twin charged engine. Ding, 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 ding.
Hey friend, I know where you're at. You forgot to get a gift for the donut fan in your life and it's too late for anything to be shipped. Well, you're in luck because Donut Media gift cards are a thing. And you can get them in some phenomenal increments. I'm talking $25, $50, $75, $100, $150. And if you want to do something crazy like $7,500, give me a call and we'll work something out. The Donut Media gift cards are 100% digital. They don't rely on the old school guy on a horse delivering things, which is how I assume things still get to people. And each of them are designed after an 80s credit card, which is a genius idea that I came up with in literally 3 seconds. So head on over to donutmedia.com and pick up your perfect stocking stuffer today.
Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of B2B. What do you think? You guys got any homegrown, homemade twin charging systems out there? Leave a comment down below. Let me go see it. I'll go Google it. I'll go search for it. If you could, please hit that like and subscribe button. That lets us know that we're doing good. I don't know if the dislike button will be gone by the time you see this video, but if so, just write dislike in the comments. I go through all those. I delete the ones I don't like, so I'll delete that one. Let us know if we're doing good. Let us know if we're doing bad. We make videos for you guys, so we want to know which lanes to take. Hopefully you guys enjoy this stuff. We enjoy making it for you. Thank you guys so much for watching. Until next week, bye for now.